Hey, it's the Husker247 Daily. It's Tuesday. Mike Schaefer let me sit in the pilot seat today. Let's try to keep it between the ditches. Talking college football at large. Nebraska getting back to action against Michigan State. A very key stretch here in October coming up. What games were you watching on the bye week, Mike, as you were watching the U.S. miss putts and just get their asses kicked by Europe, at least up until Saturday evening?
There was a lot of good games this past weekend. It was actually a nice weekend for Nebraska to be on bye because you were able to kind of watch a fair amount of college football. I found myself watching in the 11 a.m. slate a lot of Cincinnati, Kansas,
Yeah.
um, and it led to me tweeting out about how Nebraska's performance. You might look back on that and be like, "Whoa, that was a pretty strong defensive day," because basically Brendan Sorsby's lighting up everything since that
Mhm.
game. And Cincinnati's receivers are just like wide ass open in these games. Now, maybe that's just a product of who you're playing, and Kansas defense isn't great. But you're still playing another Power Four team, and they were throwing the football all over the yard. Now, the reverse of this is Kansas was putting up points and moving the ball, and certainly not struggling with the shell look that Nebraska seemed to have some issues with. Though you could argue it might have just been Nebraska's game plan to take what was in front of them and not try to force anything. And so I thought that game was pretty interesting, just from a hey, Nebraska played these guys earlier in the year. Now, I don't know if you saw this, Bruntz, but I think Cincinnati's favored against Iowa State, who is sort of the consensus best team in the Big 12 by default right now.
Yeah.
And Iowa State's on the road playing Cincinnati this weekend. So the Bearcats are in another sort of exciting game, if you would. And there's a chance that maybe they're like one of the top teams in the Big 12. I certainly didn't think that going into the game against Cincinnati. And I don't know that I would have thought that leaving the game against Cincinnati, but their performance since has been pretty good. Now, having said all of this, who knows? Maybe Iowa State just goes in, beats him up, and we never have to talk about Brendan Sorsby again. But I was kind of thinking, hey, on Sunday morning, it was like, would I rather have Carson Wentz leading this drive right now, or do I think Brendan Sorsby would have a better opportunity of scoring here? And it was Brendan Sorsby,
That's
and I
a
was probably correct in
that's a
that regard.
sad place to be on this.
There's a dark timeline at about 10:30 in the morning on Saturday, but
Here,
that one stood out
Sorsby's
for me.
numbers: 70% completion percentage for over 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 1 interception this
Oh, I
season.
know where that interception
Yeah,
happened.
we remember that one.
John Butler baited him.
Yes, and he threw for 388 and 2 touchdowns against Kansas, and added another 52 on the ground. So that win is looking better as the season goes along. Was there? What did you make of some of the Big Ten games? I'm sure you were laser focused on that UCLA Northwestern game, as we all were. But was there anybody else? I mean, Oregon, Penn State. Did you learn anything there? I mean, what were kind of some USC? Were you on that one in Champaign? Where take me where you were.
So I kind of jumped around on some different stuff in the afternoon slate, and then in the evening it was largely Penn State, Oregon at the end there. So we can start with that. I mean, as someone who held his Drew Aller stock all the way down to its current low, which is I think lower than it ever was before. Its high was probably after the Big Ten championship game last year, and I
Yeah.
needed to sell it at that point. I don't understand why it's so difficult for him, other than I wonder if Penn State's offense is too constrictive. I think he has a really big arm, and I think he can be accurate. He doesn't make great decisions, so that sort of flies in the face of whether he can be accurate or not.
You're describing Christian Hackenberg right now,
I
by the way.
know, but I don't understand. Like, all the physical tools are there. Like, that guy's going to go to his skill day. He's going to go to the combine. People are going to be like, holy shit, what an arm this guy has. Apologies for those that are listening
Whoa,
with
pay
kids.
channel. Yep.
There's a pay channel language there. But I mean, he's got the physical gifts to do this. It's either between the ears or like Penn State's offensive system might be too limiting. I don't know what it is. They should be a lot better offensively than they are. That game is going to be difficult for Nebraska for a variety of reasons. I'm not that worried about Penn State's offense. I'm genuinely, I think if Nebraska turns into the sort of shootout team that I kind of want them to lean into being, I think they could make life difficult on a lot of teams, Penn State being one of them, because I just don't know if Penn State can put up that many points. Like, I really don't. And so maybe just if they do it completely on the ground, but was unimpressed by Drew Aller. Nebraska probably fortunate not to be taking on Oregon, I think, in these last 2 years. And elsewhere, I mean, I can't believe USC couldn't put Illinois away in that game. Like, I think they're the more talented team. I thought they were the better team. I thought this was a game I had circled coming into the year because I kind of thought these were your fourth and fifth best teams in the Big Ten. Now I don't. And coming off of that Indiana game, you kind of had a blueprint, and USC couldn't do any of the stuff Indiana attempted to do or did do. And I don't know. I was kind of stalling myself on a bounce back year for the Trojans. And again, another team where Nebraska's going to play them in November. And I don't think that game's as hard as I built it up in my head. Doesn't mean Nebraska will win, as we know that you can't just count on that. But yeah, I just wasn't particularly impressed by the Trojans there either. What about you?
Well, yeah, that leads into my other question. I mean, Nebraska's got a pretty key stretch of games here in October. They're going to be favored in all of them, should be. What's the toughest game in October? And is there a tougher game waiting for Nebraska in November? Or in your mind, is the toughest game that Nebraska is going to face somewhere in these next 4 games?
I think the game that I have the most difficult time really seeing Nebraska go in, play clean, and win is still at Minnesota, just because of how it falls on the schedule. You get the short week. You're coming off a road trip to Maryland. Maryland's the 86 Chicago Bears, depending on who you talk to.
85,
86. Who cares? They were probably fine in 86. They won the Super Bowl the year before. That's a bad mistake. Maryland, like, that's going to be a challenging game, but there's something about the way Minnesota plays and they get it to Rutgers. Like, they had no business winning that game. I think Drake Lindsey's a pretty good quarterback. One of the takeaways I kind of have is Nebraska's facing some interesting quarterbacks this year on their schedule. And that's a guy that he can throw. He's highly efficient. He's not going to put the ball in bad spots. That's going to be a challenging game for Nebraska, even if they're able to move the ball against Minnesota's defense. I think Minnesota can potentially move the ball on Nebraska, and they play cleaner, better football. And PJ Fleck is just dying to say something like culture over stars at the end of the game because of Dylan Raiola being the starting quarterback for Nebraska. So I think that game's going to be really tough. Are they better than USC or Penn State? No, they're not. But the way that falls on the schedule, and the fact that it's kind of a team that I think gets overlooked, even though Nebraska hasn't beaten them since Scott Frost's first year, basically. I think that's going to be a tough game for Nebraska. I really do. What about you?
Where does Maryland fall on that for you? 86 Bears, by the way, went 14-2, lost in the divisional playoffs to Washington. So
you can't win 14 games if you suck. So Maryland doesn't suck, but they're probably not winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
I think I feel good about that comparison now, having made it inadvertently. I had some reservations with Maryland. I also watched them struggle with Northern Illinois. I think people think they're going to lose this weekend to Washington, so we'll see how they play there. I think they're better than I expected. Their defense is a little better than I expected. Yeah. So, that's going to be Nebraska's first real road game of the year, and it's going to be in sleepy College Park. I thought this game was ticketed for a Peacock 7:00 kick or something, and didn't get that. You get the 2:30 in the afternoon, 3:30 out on the East Coast. So, we're a week away from having to make a prediction on it, but I think that's going to be a difficult contest. I think Michigan State will be this weekend too. These next 3 games, they're all losable for Nebraska, and that's some of them are more coin flippy than others, but I think it would be impressive if they're able to go 3-0 over their next 3. I really do.
It would be. I would consider that significant progress if Nebraska goes
100%
over these. A lot of coin flip games they've lost through the years. Maryland, interestingly enough, their games, Florida Atlantic, Northern Illinois, who they beat 20-9, as you mentioned, Towson, and then a Wisconsin program that's in shambles right now. So I think we'll find out a lot more about them this weekend against Washington before Nebraska has to go in there next week. But our time's up. That's the Husker 24/7 Daily. Keep it locked on Husker 24/7. We'll hear from Nebraska's coordinators today, some players. We'll have all of that at Husker 24/7.